He wants to jump
1,000 cars. Sir, you have 1,000 cars.
I don't think I'd attempt to try this stunt.
Or we owe this horsepower to Uncle Sam.
Too many cars.
car. Roses would be...
Like I put my beer belly on it.
If you can't immediately tell somebody how many cars you have.
You'll really give those uppity yuppies something to think about.
Stay on the bar. Don't go off the bar with your Bronco.
1980 Volvo horns, what's right? I want to have a man's coolant.
And he's like, oh, I thought it'd be small. It's for a small car. And I'm like, yeah, but it's still an automatic transmission. They're never going to be light.
It's definitely going to have to crash.
Starting off with Brad buying another car.
That's the West.
Internet. Is this a Nigerian oil print?
I also wish you drove a tan Camry.
Anyways,
Anyway,
that's a
horrible,
very
horrible podcast content.
Very
Talking about a picture.
inside joke. Welcome to Auto Off Topic. How are you, Brad?
We'll get into that later.
Or right away, because it's probably a long story.
I mean, I could tell it in 10 seconds or less. But
all right. Well, I am in the middle of because it's the week before Thanksgiving. There's not really any car stuff going on. I'm begrudgingly getting ready to put snow tires on everything.
Has it turned temperature-wise?
Yeah, pretty much.
Right.
It's like, the morning was in the 20s.
Yeah, that's
we're
snow
talking about the
temperature.
weather.
That's snow tire temperature for sure.
And then by the afternoon, it was the 50s. And then by night, it's back in the 40s. So,
well, anything under the 40 degrees is good for snow tires because snow tires aren't just for snow. They're cold weather tires, right? So,
yeah. And
so it makes sense.
Tradition is the weekend of after Thanksgiving till April 1st. So,
yeah, if you had to put an exact timeline on it, that's probably right. The good news is, though, is that you do have a couple of other cars. So if there was a nice day and it hasn't snowed and it hasn't salted, you could take a car out with nice tires on it. It was like one of those random 65-degree late November days because it happens from time to time.
Yeah.
So there's been years when I lived in New England that I drove a classic car sometime in December. So they're not always doom and gloom. But
yeah, the new Azenuses I got for track days, those are inside already. So, the G20 is sitting on the other wheels that have the Azenuses on it, but those tires have already basically been heat cycled out anyways. Yep. So they have tread on them, but they're not for track days anymore. So right. I guess the problem with them is there's water in the tread compound that can freeze.
That's interesting.
And that's like, it's not so bad if they're just like sitting and not moving, but when you're rolling on them, that's when they can really be wrecked, I guess.
That's an odd thing. I've not heard that, but I don't not believe it. It's just strange. I've never heard it.
Well, you're not supposed to use them in low temps. So
right. And that's just any summer tire you're not supposed to use in low temperatures because they don't grip. There's no secret to why like race car drivers warm their tires up because race car tires work better when they're warm. So
yeah,
you'd probably run better lap times on a snow tire in the wintertime than you would a race tire on a cold track. So.
Yeah. Oh, the only thing I did, it was a decently nice day last Friday. It was observed at my company for Veterans Day, so I had it off. So I took the Talon out, and I got a sticker on it finally because I hadn't had a chance to.
Just in time to put it away for the year.
Yeah, but I did it, and everything's inspected, so I don't have to worry about it.
Good. One less thing to worry about come springtime.
Yeah, it's ready to go. I can just use it.
Just take it out and use it. Yep. So that's good.
So
speaking of holidays, I don't think we should let the podcast go without recognizing that we're recording on Steve Irwin Day.
Oh, I didn't realize it was Steve Irwin Day.
It is. I don't know why. I just saw that, so I thought it would be important because it's so correlated. to bring that up.
Maybe
So.
maybe it's his birthday.
My guess is it's either his birthday or the day he died. I don't know which one it is.
Yeah. Either a
But
good guess.
I couldn't avoid it earlier, and I saw it, and I was like, "Oh, we got to mention that because it's an important day. He's an important celebrity in the in the world of automobiles, of course."
Yes.
Not at all. But,
Nope.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Let's see. It is his birthday.
Okay.
Nope, I lied. It's the birthday of his favorite animal, a big tortoise named Harriet.
Okay.
So, there you go. Important stuff.
So we left off. You were trying to pick a car to go to Radwood, I think.
Yeah, and I did.
Yeah.
Successful choice. Made it all the way.
Okay.
Well. All right. So, Radwood was last Saturday in Long Beach. It was actually a new venue. It was at the Port of Long Beach, right, obviously on the water as it's the port. I had been prepping the 944 to go. I think we talked about doing the intake manifold gasket, and then I realized that the wheel bearing on the right front wasn't correctly set, or it was worn, needs to be replaced. So I was like, you know what? I probably shouldn't drive a few hundred miles on a bad wheel bearing. So I instead said I'm going to take the Corolla. Then I decided I wasn't going to take the Corolla because it really still needs an alignment and it really still needs exhaust. So I decided that I would hold off, and instead of both of those vehicles, I would go ahead and bring the Eclipse, because the Eclipse is always pretty much ready to go. No real issues. It just goes and goes and goes. That'll be my choice. So Friday night, I got in the Eclipse. I met up with friend of the podcast, Ron, in his Starion across town. And then we did our Mitsubishi Caravan all the way to Long Beach, California. So something about it, Mitsubishi, it just feels right? That's our whole thing, you know?
Yep.
Mitsubishi apologists through and through. So everything went swimmingly. Car drove awesome. Anybody that listened every week will remember I just did worked on the idle and wound up replacing the ISC, the idle speed controller. Everything was working pretty good. Drove out there, returned like high 20 mile per gallon, like 27, 28 miles per gallon at 75, 80 the whole way. AC pumping, nice and cool, like radio going. It was a pretty relaxing ride out there. I was pretty stoked on it. Got to our Airbnb, which is a whole nother thing. That place is wild. It was, you know how some Airbnbs look like the entire inside of Hobby Lobby threw up on them?
Yeah.
This one here looked like if there was a Hobby Lobby for Americanized Mexican food restaurants. Bright colors, sugar skulls, like everywhere. Absolutely ridiculous. Over the top, but super fun, super cool place. The reason we chose it was it had off-street parking for 3 cars and 3 bedrooms. So it's actually a pretty sweet spot for Long Beach events, because it wound up costing less than hotels per person, and having secure parking in Long Beach, and like you go to events in Long Beach, is pretty good. So gonna have to keep that in mind for JCCS next year, I think. But anyway, made it there. All was well. The next morning, got up to go to the show. It was about a 20-minute drive from the Airbnb to the show. Did the morning cleaning of the car. I didn't do any like heavy actual like car wash cleaning. I just kind of wiped it down on the driveway because it was fairly clean. Shined it up with some, what do you call it, spray and shine kind of stuff. Drove the car all the way to the Port of Long Beach. So driving to the Port of Long Beach, car ran great. We get to the show. We drive past the entrance because you have to go to like a U-turn to turn around to get in line to come in. Ron makes the U-turn in his Starion. I made the U-turn in the Eclipse. And as I accelerated through first gear, it stumbled. And then I heard flap, 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 the sound of a belt breaking. And I was like, oh, that's annoying, but no big deal. I'll just pull over and I'll check it. And I'm sure I can, there's an auto zone down the street. I'm sure I can get a belt, slap back together, and be on the road end of the day. I did bring tools with me to make sure I had stuff to fix it. So, and then as I'm pulling over, I noticed the oil light came on too. I was like, huh, that's strange. So I shut it down immediately and coasted to a stop. So I opened the hood, and the drive belt was completely in place. And I went, huh, that's not good. So I got back in the car and I said, well, I'll try to start it and to see if it was some weird stumble. And I went to start it and it did that, typical fast spinning, no compression. And I went, well, guess that means I blew a timing belt. So I took out the tools that I brought in case I had any issues, and I took the timing cover off, and sure enough, the timing belt was snapped. So
Weird.
Yeah. I don't understand. I did some math from the kilometers that are on the car now to when I got it, and it's about 25,000 miles it equals out to. So yeah. Just about 4 years and 25,000 miles is well within the service time of that timing belt. They're 60,000 miles or 10 years. You start to check it and be concerned by it. So
yeah,
I am not sure. The belt looks good, other than where it obviously doesn't. It has totally, the pliability of it is good. There's no dry rot. There's no cracks. There's no gouging anywhere. It's just snapped in one spot, and there's a worn out spot right where it snapped.
Was the
probably from whenever it snapped?
Belt replaced?
It was. Yeah. If you go back to when I purchased the car, a previous owner is a friend of mine, and he did the timing belt, water pump, and balance belt before I picked it up, because we did not know when it was last done, and I picked it up in Tennessee and drove it to Massachusetts and then to Phoenix. So the one thing we wanted to be sure of was that I had a good timing belt. So again, that was 25,000 miles ago, 4 years ago, well within the service interval. It was a Gates timing belt. It wasn't some weird off-brand. I mean, I guess there's always the how long was the timing belt on a shelf somewhere, but also it's totally pliable and nice. It's not a beat up timing belt. So I don't know. Have you ever seen one fail before it's supposed to on its own?
No.
Yeah, that's my concern.
Not unless the balance belt let go. But
yeah, but the balance belt's on the same timing interval, right? I think the balance belt is the reason the timing belt is only 60,000 miles, because you want to check that balance belt every time. So
it is the same interval, but
yeah.
If they throw the belt, it's thinner and smaller, so they can wear out. And if those wear out, they basically throw themselves into the other timing belt and throw it off.
Oh, of course. And maybe that's what happened, but I haven't had a chance to dig down into it too far yet, because, it's a couple days ago.
It's weird. It didn't, sometimes you should do the pulleys, but they weren't noisy. The car wasn't noisy when it was running. It was super quiet.
No, car ran pretty good. Right before I made that U-turn where the belt did come off, it made a weird little vibrate-y kind of noise. But it went away. It was just a quick little brrr, and then stopped. And I was like, oh, that was weird. I gotta check into that and see what that was. And then I just drove away like normal, and the belt snapped. So maybe that was the balance belt letting go. And then when I accelerated away, it tangled itself up in the timing belt, and
yeah, I don't know,
and just snapped the belt. But I mean, I maybe I wouldn't have noticed, because if the balance belt comes off, for those that don't know DSMs or 4G63s, the balance belt drives the oil pump. So if the oil pump stops spinning, then your oil light will come on, which was my first indicator when I turned and I pulled over that the oil light
But
was on.
that will also come on if the car stalls
Usually, yeah.
and the ignition's on.
But what I'm saying is if that balance shaft belt came off prior to the belt breaking, it would have illuminated the oil light because the oil pressure would go down to zero pretty much instantaneously if the oil pump stopped spinning. But it may have done that, and I didn't notice because I was literally waiting in like a queue to make a U-turn into traffic. So my eyes weren't focused on the gauge cluster. I was looking down the street to like make sure I didn't get T-boned. So
Sorry, it's not. The belt doesn't drive the pump. It's driven off the pump
sure.
because that's why you can delete the belt.
So, but still, oh, okay. So yeah, so it wouldn't. Yeah, you're right. I had that backwards. So the balance belt is driven by the oil pumps. The oil pump's not driven by that then.
No,
You're right. Now that I'm thinking
oil
of the car
pump
apart.
is time and belt
Gear-
driven.
It's gear
when the
driven,
belt-
right? The time belt drives the crank gear, and the crank gear drives the gear into the oil pump, right?
No, it's driven by the time belt.
Oh, okay.
So when that broke, it that's why it stopped spinning.
So timing belt stopped spinning. So yeah, so if the balance belt broke, it wouldn't have stopped the oil pump. You're right. Now that my brain is, I was not thinking of that properly, but that is correct. It is driven by. It's been a long time since I've been inside a 4G63. Now I forget, but now that I'm picturing it properly, I think you're right. You're definitely right. So, okay. Anyway, regardless, it's borked, and it no longer runs. And I'm a little sad about it. So, should turn into a sad boy car like those Miata guys. Yeah. So that was Saturday. I was maybe 100 feet from the entrance to Radwood.
Almost made it.
Almost made it. Missed it by that much. Thankfully, we know plenty of people who are attendees of Radwood, friends and acquaintances and all of the above. So there was no shortage of people to help push. So we did push it into the show.
So it was on display.
Not before security at the gate was like, why are you pushing this broken car into the show? And I was like, well, I have a ticket, so it's fine. And they're like, well, we got to find out what to do. And I was like, just let me push it in. And they're like, well, we got to figure it out. I was like, just call Art, please. So they did. And then Art was like, obviously, push it in.
Where else were you going to leave it? The street?
Right. Well, that's what the security guy wanted me to do. So push into the show. It was actually pretty funny because where we pushed it was kind of right front and center. And we were waiting for like the rest of the show to fill up before we moved it. But you know how things go and time goes by. And the way Radwood was set up this time, there was 2 areas of outdoor display and 1 area of indoor display. And when you walked out of the outdoor display, from the indoor display to the outdoor display, the first thing you could prominently see was my Eclipse sitting there, front and center, blocking the entire section of 944s. Which made me a little happy because I don't like when cars are parked all together. In fact, Ron was like, do not move your car under any circumstance. You have to leave it there all day to ruin every picture opportunity for the cars that all park together. I was like, I don't know about that, but I will say that for those of us in the Discord who know about the hatred of hoods being up at car shows, I was peer pressured and guilted into leaving my hood up the entire show with the timing belt kind of laid over the fender for effect. So I did that. Thankfully, I just completely detailed under the hood of the car. So while it's broken, it looks real sharp.
Gorgeous.
Yep. So it was certainly a conversation piece during the day. Anytime I was near it and anybody knew it was mine, they'd come over and start asking, what happened, yada, yada. One guy's like, did this just happen? Like, yeah, that's why it's here, man. Didn't drag it from Arizona broken. Yeah. So, yeah, no, it broke literally outside. So, anyway, so that's where that lays. So, obviously, for those of you who aren't familiar with geography, Long Beach is not close to Phoenix. So
No, it's
probably give or
Like
take
6 hours.
400 miles. So now I'm a little bit panicked on Saturday morning at this car event because I'm give or take 400 miles from home with a car that you can't just slap a belt on and drive it back home because, as you're aware, and most people are aware, the 4G63 is an interference engine. So when a belt snaps, 99.99 infinite nines % of the time, you also bend valves. So
Oh, yeah.
it's not just a case of just slapping a belt on and calling it a day like it was an 8-valve Volkswagen, you know? So unfortunately, I had to think of a way to get the car home. That wouldn't cost me $1 million. Or
Yeah.
leave the car in Long Beach somewhere with a trusted person and just kind of suck it up and pay somebody to fix it. Those are the two options. There were no other options, right? So a tow is out of the question because a tow for 400 miles is thousands of dollars. I might as well just leave it there and have somebody fix it for thousands of dollars. U-Haul was the next option, but with the one-way fees and the mileage, it would have been almost $1,000 in just U-Haul fees, not counting fuel. And the U-Haul trucks are all gasoline, and gasoline trucks pulling a trailer, figure what, maybe 8 miles per gallon
Yeah.
for 400 miles, and California gas is what, $5.50 a gallon? So that would have been probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,500 to $2,000 worth of stuff. I was like, well, that's not ideal. So thankfully, I mean, I've sang her praises on this show enough, but Naomi did not come with me to this event. And the reason she didn't come was because it was like her only weekend to not do anything.
Cut your timing belt?
Yeah. That's the joke, that I was mad she didn't come with me, so I cut the timing belt so she come save me. But anyways, she did not want to do anything this particular weekend because she's been burning the candle at both ends, basically.
Yeah,
like
joke's
running
on her.
around, yeah, running around doing stuff. She had a couple of training rides for her big bicycle ride next weekend in Tucson, and was like, you know what, I'm just gonna stay home, do some training rides, just like relax on the couch. You go do your thing, and we'll see when you get back. So thankfully, she wasn't with me because we decided the best plan of attack was to use her brother's truck. He has the Ram 2500 diesel that I previously used to gather the 81 Cressida in the desert when I bought it. And because the Eclipse is a front-wheel drive car, we used a U-Haul tow dolly because it gets better fuel mileage towing that than towing a full car trailer, and it costs less. So we didn't have to pay for a truck. A U-Haul tow dolly for a day is like $39.99. And we just made it work. So she came out. She left at like 3 a.m. from Phoenix. Was in Long Beach sometime around 9. We were all done, loaded up at the port of Long Beach. Probably 9:45 or so. I could probably tell that part of the story. The next
how'd
part
that
was
work?
trying to decide where to leave my car for the night broken. So we were at the port of Long Beach, which is an active shipping port.
Yep.
So I had to get special permission from the government to leave
Homeland Security.
Homeland Security to leave the Eclipse in a secure facility overnight and then come back the next day to pick it up. So basically, I have government clearance now for the Eclipse. So it's pretty sweet stuff. It sounds more fun to say it. I just had to call the head of security and ask him if it was okay, and he was like, "That's fine." A neat kind of fact, though, the facility that they used, the reason that they could use it was because it's out of season for what its use is. They bring any produce from South of America to this particular building, and then it sits in giant pallets, and these plastic like sheets come down and enclose them in little rooms while they spray them with whatever they have to spray them with to decontaminate them from foreign entities coming into the States. So we're in a giant decontamination room is basically what Radwood was held in. So I'm sure it didn't help my my gluten allergy living in the world of pesticides there, but whatever. So yeah, that's where the car stood overnight. So the guy was pretty cool. They were coming back the next day to do some cleanup from Radwood stuff anyway. Like the Mobile One guys were there breaking down the Mobile One booth, and there's must have actually and Art from Radwood was there the second day when I went back. So there was some activity on Sunday there anyway, so it worked out. But we get the whole thing loaded up. I get in the truck to drive it home because I'm not going to make Naomi drive both ways, right? And as we're driving towards the end of the parking lot, I hit the brakes for the first time. And I'm like, this thing doesn't stop very well. She's like, what? I was like, it's really hard to stop this. And it doesn't sound good. And she's like, it was fine the whole way here. And I'm like, yeah, but now with the added, 3,500 pounds of car and tow dolly on the back, it's very hard to stop. And then we went out on the main road and I hit the brakes again from like 35 miles an hour, and it was really difficult to stop. Like white knuckle on the wheel. Like I could feel the steering wheel like shaking, and it's not stopping. And I'm like, man, this is sketchy. Thankfully, modern consumer grade diesel trucks have what is essentially a Jake brake. They have an exhaust brake built in. So I was able to turn on the exhaust brake, and that helped a little bit with my stopping. But I pretty much white knuckled it all the way till we got to the 10, because it was not confidence inspiring, especially driving in the city around Long Beach, and then driving on those windy, tight highways like the 91 and I think whatever the other road is to get back to the 10. It was super sketchy. So I drove very gingerly, and I gave myself way more stopping space than I normally do, and made it to the 10. And then, of course, the towing speed limit in California for anything with more than 2 axles is 55. So I wasn't going to go any faster than that anyway because it felt sketchy. So I did
the 10 exploding. So
yeah, we were south of that, so we were good. That happened in like LA. We were in Long Beach. We were there at the same time. We would have been caught up in that disaster, but we were below it, so it's cool. Yeah, so I did make it home. We just kind of took our time. We knew it was going to be a long time, so like we actually stopped and had a proper lunch and moved on from there. Just kind of right lane, relaxed. Didn't pass anybody. Everybody passed us. Made it home. Unloaded the car here at my house here, and then we were going to return the truck back to her brother because the next day was Monday, and we both had to work. So, and her Maverick was at her brother's house. So we brought the truck back to her brother, brought the Maverick back home, told her brother, like, hey man, something's going on with these brakes. I don't know if it is grinding like metal on metal or something, but this truck doesn't stop very well. And he's like, huh, I haven't noticed. So he doesn't drive the truck a lot because he drives an 18-wheeler. So the truck sits a lot. He's like, well, I'll get it checked out tomorrow morning. He's like, I got some errands to run in town. He lives out in the desert. He's like, so actually last time I just had a brake job done on it, and they gave me, a lifetime warranty on pads and rotors. And I was like, okay. So definitely get it checked out. Yeah. So he's like, yeah, I'll get it checked out. So we get home. The dolly is still here. The plan is to hook it up to the Maverick and bring it back to the U-Haul place because we actually rented it with the Maverick. Surprisingly, they didn't ask us what we were towing or what we're towing with, because that would definitely have been over the weight limit of the Maverick, but the empty dolly was not. So, fun fact, we lost about 3 miles per gallon with towing the empty U-Haul thing with the Maverick. Where was I going with this? So the next morning, I get a call from Chad, Naomi's brother, and he's like, hey man, you're right. This thing doesn't feel right. Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. So then he calls back a few minutes later and he's like, well, I went to the bank first and I was backing into a spot. He's like, and the car stopped super hard. Like I thought I put the trailer hitch into the wall behind me. Like it hit so hard. So I got out and I looked and the trailer hitch was a couple feet from the wall still. That's weird. I didn't hit anything. Why did the thing stop? It's not new enough to have, like a cross traffic sensor or anything that would have gone off. So he put it in gear to drive forward and the truck wouldn't move. So he gave it a little more throttle, and he spit the right front inner pad out of the truck and onto the ground, and the truck lurched forward. And he heard the thing dinging around. He's like, "That's not good." Got out and looked and saw his pad on the ground. Basically, just the backing plate of the pad on the ground. Nothing else was left. So I don't know where it was hung up in there or what happened, but he did get the car towed from there to the brake place and sent me a picture of the caliper. And it's a 2-piston caliper, and the pistons themselves were worn down. So absolute insanity. I don't even know where the pad was sitting because obviously the pistons were rubbing on something that was moving.
Yeah.
Completely destroyed.
Paid for the whole pad and used the whole pad.
He did, yeah, one of the two anyway. So yeah, he was like, well, I guess I need brakes. So we were kind of sitting there doing some math, trying to figure out what the best cost option would be, whether it be just to have it done where it's at, or buy all the parts and have it towed home and do it ourselves. Which, hey, listen, I used the truck. He didn't charge me to use the truck. I don't think I broke the truck. I think that what probably happened was the caliper's been stuck for a while, and driving around his little neighborhood, nobody noticed. And then when Naomi drove it all the way to California, it probably wore most of the way through. And then when we put the trailer on the back and put the car on the trailer,
Well,
it really exacerbated the problem.
Well, if it was hung up, the thing's a diesel Ram 2500. You
Right.
wouldn't even notice it.
Never even noticed it till it wore out. Yep.
No, because it's like it's got so much torque and power. It's like whatever.
Yeah. So, and then your brain goes to like, how could a caliper seize in Arizona? Like, it doesn't get driven in the snow and the salt, but he does use the thing on sand a lot because he tows his side by side to the dunes, and I'm sure sand isn't good for that kind of stuff either. So, if sand gets up inside things and then it sits for a while, sand's going to hold moisture, and you're going to wind up with the same kind of deal you get with salt and sand back east, right? Just maybe one thought. So
Yeah, I guess.
Anyway,
no idea. Especially on the front. The front is so weird because it gets used the most. Like I would expect a rear.
Yeah,
because they don't do as much work.
Right. But yeah, I don't know. But the thing does sit a lot too, which is, when cars sit anywhere, they develop problems. So, yeah. So actually, we had a place that he went to. It's called Brake Masters. They are just that. They're specifically a brake store. That's pretty much their main gig. They did one new caliper, and they did 4 rotors and pads all around for like $700.
So what place gave him the lifetime warranty?
Brake Masters.
Oh.
Yeah, they warranted the pads.
Okay.
So last time he went there, they cut his rotors.
Right.
And he did new pads all around. So they had a warranty on his pads for a lifetime warranty.
Oh.
So he went back to them because they weren't too far from where the truck was broken, and he had a warranty with them anyway, even though he didn't think they would honor the warranty because the caliper was stuck. And they did honor the warranty, but they said, last time you were here, we cut your rotors, and this rotor is absolutely trashed, and the other ones are it's been 40,000 miles or 55,000 miles since he was last there, and the other ones are like borderline trashed. And they're like, well, we'll do 4 new rotors, new pads all around because the pads are free. And we have this caliper we can have, within a couple hours and do the whole job. But it was like $700. So
Hold on. The brakes were like 50,000 miles old?
50.
Then the pads were probably already pretty thin to begin with.
No, they were decent. They weren't terrible bad. They still had life in them. The inside pad was the only one that was bad, the one that was from where we were stuck. The outside pad still had, I don't know, 6 or 7 millimeters. It wasn't anything to like be emergency status about. Like we looked and checked through the wheels earlier on this whole thing to kind of see what was going on. But the pads all looked good all around on the outside pad anyway. But anyway, so I was looking at prices of what it would cost to buy the parts all on Rock Auto and do it. And there's that same company that you guys did when you had your last job that we did the brake job on my Silverado with. That does like the whole brake kits. They offer those at Rock Auto. So I was going to do one of those for the front and then do rotors and pads in the back. But it was almost the same exact amount of money, just in parts. So it was like, yeah, we'll just have them do it for like $100 extra. Because then, A, we're not wasting our time. And it's warranted, and we still have to tow the car back to your house. So that would probably be a couple $100 from where it was anyway. So it actually wound up being cheaper just to have them do it than have us fix it. So truck's fixed. Car's not fixed. The truck's fixed. So, but talk about an adventure, man. It was a long one. We didn't get back that night from the whole thing and then dropping off the truck till probably right around midnight. So it was a long one. And then Monday was miserable, obviously, because it was an emotional roller coaster of a weekend. And then the actual just amount of time out and about on Sunday was a lot. So didn't get a ton done Monday. Tuesday night, I did manage to push the car into the driveway. When I got off work, my across the street neighbor was home and he gave me a hand pushing the car into the driveway. I haven't dug too deep into tearing it down yet. I did do all the simple things, like I checked the dipstick to see if there were metal shavings in the oil. Didn't see anything. Checked the bottom of the oil cap. Didn't see anything. Pulled the spark plugs out, because sometimes when you damage a piston, you'll see some damage in the bottom of the spark plug from pieces hitting it. There was nothing there. All 4 spark plugs looked in good shape. And I used my poroscope tool, the one that plugs into the phone and turns the phone screen into the screen, to kind of look down into the pistons, into the cylinders, I should say. And all 4 pistons are still there. My last experience with timing belt on the Ford G63, one of the pistons turned into a powdery substance in the bottom of the pan. So at least all 4 of them are still there. The picture is not exactly clear enough to know if there's any damage on the pistons from the valves hitting them. It looks like there might be a little bit of contact, but I won't know until I pull the cylinder head off. I've been getting some conflicting thoughts from a few different people of whether I should just slap a belt on it and see what happens, or if I should actually take it apart and dig into it. But most of the people who have experience working on Ford G63s have said, no, take the cylinder head off. You're definitely going to need at least a couple of valves. It never doesn't do damage, especially if you weren't at like 600 RPM, which I wasn't. I was at like 4,500 or so. So I think I'm going to go with the Mitsubishi Ford G63 people and take it apart and just do it right. It makes sense. The entire effort of doing a belt just to see if it's going to fix it seems silly to me. So that's it's going to be done the right way. I mean, the car deserves to be done the right way. It's treated me pretty well. I'm sure some people will remember that I technically sold the car. I hadn't collected any money yet, but I had sold the car, and it was just kind of like, this is going to be his last hurrah trip before it went. I don't know if the car was like, you going to sell me? Pfft, I don't think so. Or what? But that's where it went down. So at this point in time, the car is no longer for sale. because by the time I'm done putting it together, I'll be into it upside down, and I might as well just hold on to it. So I have a couple of back of my head thoughts of what's going to happen next. It's a non-turbo car. Turbo cars have oil squirters, I think, in the pistons, right, Andrew? So
It's in the block, yeah.
In the block onto the pistons. Non-turbo cars don't have that. So if the damage is so detrimental that it needs like a bottom end rebuild, maybe it's time to just find a turboed parts car and rebuild an actual turbo engine and use all the good fun turbo parts and just build a front drive turbo car. Because at this point, if I got to rebuild it anyway, why not do that? Right? Or if it doesn't have any bottom end damage, then just put it back together as is. So I'm not sure yet. It all depends on how bad it is and what I'm going to do. So I think that if I have to do a full engine rebuild, like bottom end as well, it actually makes more sense to do that. Find a turbo parts car and use all the turbo parts, because I think at the end of the day, if I do that swap and I spend the money, the car would retain some of that value. Whereas I rebuild the car as a non-turbo, it doesn't gain any value either. So I'm even way more upside down. And I don't think the car deserves to just be like junked. Like it should be repaired. So I don't know. Those kind of are my thought processes, Andrew. What do you think? Good, bad,
I mean, I'd
terrible
probably just throw a head on it and fix it.
Well, yeah, if I can get away with just throwing a head on it and fixing it, great. But if I take it apart and the pistons are all smashed, then it's going to be a different story, right?
Yeah.
If I got to pull... What I'm saying is if I have to pull the engine out because it needs bottom end repair, if it needs pistons or bent rod or something, I'm sure it doesn't have that. But if it needs pistons or something that requires pulling the engine out, I might as well just take it to the next step. And if I'm going to spend the money to put turbo parts in it, and then it's worth what a turbo car is worth, which is more than what that car is worth. Because then at the end of the day, I won't lose money on the car. Whereas spending money to do a bottom end and keeping it NA, I would lose a ton of money. I'm trying to think of the best
Not
thing
to
for
like
me.
put a head on it. You wouldn't lose that much money.
I'm not putting a head on Andrew. What I'm saying is if the bottom end needs to be done.
It's not worth converting to a turbo car, but...
If the bottom end needs to be done?
No. Too much work. Too much wiring. It's like you got to swap everything. It's not.
Yeah, that's why I would buy a parts car that had everything in it.
I guess it's
just a thought process. Like if worst case scenario, it needs a bottom end, it's a financial disaster decision to build a bottom end and keep it non-turbo.
Yeah, it also is to convert it to turbo, I think. I don't think it's worth it either.
Well, a non-turbo car is worth
professional opinion.
$3 or $4 grand tops, and a turbo car is worth...
I don't know why you're worried
7 or 8.
about value.
I'm worried about value because my plan was to sell the car. So every dime I spend on the car, I'm going to lose if I still sell it.
Well, then you just sell it as is.
As is, it's worth nothing. What's a non-turbo shell worth? $500? So
yeah, I don't. It's not worth converting to a turbo, but I can tell you that.
I don't know. I'm just trying to think of the best way to get out of this without.
It's not as it's okay. Like swaps are not just like do a swap and it works. It's not going to just work. It's
I don't expect it to.
A ton of problems that you have to figure out to make it work, to have it tuned, to make it run right. It's way more headache than what it's actually worth. So it's not just the money value, like it's like the actual time that you invest into turbo swapping it.
Okay.
That makes it not worth it, in my opinion.
Okay. Even just going stock everything, like stock wiring harness, stock ECU, make it just stock and make it just work.
Yeah.
I don't think it's worth it.
Okay. Well. All right. It's a thought process. I'm just dealing with it still anyway.
I
And
think
like I
it's
said,
probably fine. It probably just needs valves, and you throw a head on it, and it's good to go.
yeah.
If you want, maybe get an NA header for it.
Yeah, well, we'll see. One thing at a time. If it yeah. I've been told to do cams and header before, so boy, we'll see. It's just it's super frustrating because it's a project that I did not want to do, and now I have to do it. So just gets in the way of everything else. I had plans. This wasn't it. And I don't want to park it and get to it later because that turns into years. So I just want to get it fixed and get it done. So
Yeah.
we'll see. Stay tuned to next week because by next week I'll know what's going on because between now and this weekend I'll have time to pull the head off. So assess the damage. Hopefully it doesn't need anything beyond a head. That's the hope. But in my experience, I've blown up a 4G63 before, and it had a lot more damage than just the head. So, whatever. Life goes on. In fact, the last time I blew one up, I didn't take it apart. I gave up on it and sold it to you for parts, and you took it apart, and all it needed was 2 valves.
No, I sold that engine.
Right. But it still had a damage to the valves, didn't it?
I have no idea.
I
I just sold it as is.
Yeah. I thought it wound up just needing like a couple of valves.
I have no idea.
Yeah. Anyway, whatever.
I don't even remember who I sold it to.
Doesn't matter. It was 20 years ago. So, anyway, yeah, that's where I'm at. I got a broken car again. And, yep, but I'm home. The good news is it didn't break in the middle of the 10, somewhere between here and Long Beach. Didn't break in the middle of the desert. I mean, it could have broken here. It would have been more convenient than breaking in Long Beach, but it didn't. And it didn't break in the middle of the desert where I died with no phone signal. The truck didn't throw the caliper out or the pad out in the same location somewhere along the 10. It made it all the way back home. So, considering both vehicles made it to their destination of some sort, I guess we'll call it a success. Radwood was an excellent event. It's probably one of my favorites I've been to. Location was cool. Cars were cool.
I finally had a little FOMO over that because the LA one's like usually a really good one. So
yeah. This is a whole new location on the water. Cool backdrops. Inside the building was cool. I had a lot of fun playing with different angles with the camera. I think I got some pretty interesting, not typical car show shots. I think I did some decent stuff with pictures this time. I'm pretty proud of it. Pat myself on the back.
It's a good amount of Mitsubishis there. There's several other DSMs.
A solid amount of Mitsubishis. There were 3 DSMs counting mine. Our friend Tony Bird, Captain Tonius or Captain Tonius, right? On Instagram.
Yeah.
He was there. There was another one there that he goes by the Instagram name AK_DSM_91. AK for Alaska, where his plates are from, where he's from. He lives in, well, I won't say where he lives now because he has Alaska plates, but lives in Alaska. He was there. That car is super clean. It's a 91 black over the gray and dark gray, like confetti interior, like ours were, or yours is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a front drive automatic turbo, so it's not exactly what I'd want, but hey, it's a super clean DSM that still exists in 2023, so you take it any way you can, right?
Yep.
Super rad car. So that's there. Ron had his Starion, obviously, which actually now is officially a Starion. He finally sourced the correct logos for the back of the car. In the 5 or 6 years he's had it, it's never had logos on it. So everybody's always like, what kind of car is that? Now they can walk around the back and they can see that, hey, it's a Starion. There was a Pajero Evo that was there, which belongs to, he goes by the Instagram username MTEOVR. So that's Michael. I think he's a journalist. See his work some places. I'd say where, but I don't know. But I know he's not a motor journalist. So yeah, his Page Evo was there. Other Mitsubishis. There was one Montero Sport that was actually pretty clean. I think that might have been it. Yeah, probably was it. But yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff. A lot of Volkswagen content that I don't usually see at a West Coast Radwood. Volkswagen seemed to be a pretty hefty East Coast car, but there was a sweet Mark II Jetta Coupe with a GTI quad round front and a heck blend panel on the trunk, on some super period correct. I think they're Momo Quasars in like a light blue color. It's a super cool car. Small bumpers, exactly the way I would want one. There was a big bumper Jetta there as well. A B3 Passat with the same style of headlights like your G20 has. That was super cool. I think there was 2 Strosek 911s, which are terrible looking, but they're certainly from a period. The raddest accessory went to a mid-80s Toyota Land Cruiser towing a mid-80s Bowrider boat with a bunch of like period correct skis and a whole little like camping setup next to it that had like the vinyl webbed lawn chairs and everything. It was definitely straight out of 1986. It was awesome. It wasn't like over the top at all. It was like exactly what you would have seen in a campground in 1986. Yeah, there was some really cool stuff there. Tons of people, tons of cars.
I saw pictures of a lot of Volvos.
There was a good amount of Volvos. There was a
blue wagon,
blue
with
wagon,
Mustang 3 spokes.
Yeah, which is funny because they're Mustang base model Mustang 3 spokes. So SN95 chassis Mustang 6 cylinders came with a 3-spoke wheel with like 4 or 5 cast lines into each spoke. And he had those converted into like a 16 or a 17-inch deep dish. And it sounds like it should be terrible, but I liked it a lot. The car looked really good.
I've seen those wheels used on several other cars. It actually works. It's really weird.
Yeah, it's strange. It works really well. So yeah, that was definitely cool. My favorite car of the show was a Toyota. It was an early 80s Starlet. It was over the top build. Inside, outside, like plaid inserts in leather seats. I think it was beams powered. It had fender mirrors that had like clear plastic nose cones on them with little flowers in them. And then it had a shift knob with the little flower in it to match those, kind of tied all together. It had the Toyota color stripes down the side of the car. And then it had custom gauges that were the same color as the car, but also incorporated the Toyota stripes. Like just a stunning car. Very well done. Custom built bumpers to like tuck them in nice and close. Like it was stuff you'd see guys spend the money doing on like a 32 Ford done to a Toyota Starlet. Just an absolute over the top build. I can't even. It's one of those cars words can't explain. It was a really, really nice car. Your Infiniti people were there. There was a sweet M30 in like a super deep candy apple red on HREs. My guess is it's the same car that we saw at JCCS at Anaheim a couple years back. That was black because that was also at M30. That was super clean on HREs. But my guess is the same car, only painted red now, candy apple red. So those are probably my favorite cars of the show. That Starlet for sure, that M30 for sure. And just everything. It was a good time. Model Citizen Diecast was there, friend Patrick. So look him up on the internet. Model Citizen Diecast. He's also now dealing in Tarmac Works.
Show.
Yes, he's also now dealing in 1/64th scale Tarmac Works. So I, of course, had to drown some of my snapped timing belt sorrows in diecast purchases. So I did buy a couple of Tarmac cars from him. The Nordica Volvo race car and the Pilot F40 race car. So took a little sting off, I guess. But yeah, it was a hell of a show. 0 out of 10. Wouldn't recommend because my car died. But if my car hadn't died, it would have been 10 out of 10. So take that as you will. I'm sure I'll be back next year. And I guess I probably have to take the Eclipse again, right? Like a phoenix rising from the ashes. Yeah, I must make it there and back. Or will I have too much PTSD as I pull out of the driveway? We'll see. But yeah, it was a good time. As always, recommend going to a Radwood show if you haven't been. Very good time. And a huge shout out to Art and Warren. Both those guys made what could have been a really bad day for me kind of work out. So they were very accommodating, very helpful, and obviously they understood my situation, and they helped out in any way they could. So big shout out to those guys. I did, to circle back to my original story, eventually wind up moving my car from its spot blocking the photo ops. I did notice a couple of missed calls from Art, and I was like, uh-oh, that probably means he's trying to get a hold of me because he wants me to move my car, and I was right. So I did move it out of the main area off to the side a little bit, but damage is already done, I'm sure. And no slight to the 944 people. They're a good crowd. I don't like when 15 of the same cars parked together. I like them to be a little more spread out. So anyway, that's where we're at. It's a good time. Now,
cool.
Listen, the things I do for the podcast, Andrew, I created a whole new project just to keep things going.
Content's content, man.
That's what it's all about, right? That's why I did it. That's why I cut the belt.
Oh yeah. So that's gonna come out. That'll be the 30 for 30 on the auto off topic. It'll be like, well, there was that one scandal where Brad actually cut his own timing belt.
Yeah.
Just to make a story.
Trust and believe, if I were to have cut my own timing belt, there would have been a warranty involved and it would have been closer to home. Because I don't want to fix this car at all. In fact, it's pretty much the furthest thing from my brain, because I had, not to dig too deep into mental health, but I've had some pretty big breakthroughs lately in my own personal mental health. And I was pretty amped and pretty heavily working on things and making things better, and this is a pretty big setback. So it's not great. It's not great. So anyway, there we go.
I'm trying to think. I don't think there's any special tools you need to get the.
No, I should probably get that little tool that goes
out
between the cam gears to.
I got them. When you're ready to do it, we'll just mail it to you.
Yeah.
Or you can buy it. I mean, they're also cheap.
It's cheap enough. I should probably just have one.
People just 3D print them now, I think.
My future involves another 4G63, so I should probably just have the tool. I mean,
there's that tool, and then there's a really long threaded bolt that they also sell in the set.
Okay.
And it's so you can set the tension.
Okay.
On the tensioner.
Well, I'll get both those things. Send me the links. I'll order them because, again, I'm my future plans after the Great Purge, which the Eclipse was part of. Now it doesn't seem like it's going to be. I'm going to involve another 4G63 car of one sort or another. So,
there's an adapter with the 2 pins because the tensioner pulley is eccentric, and you set it. Yeah.
That I remember too.
It's all coming back to. It's been a while. So you've actually reminded me. The Talon timing belt is 20 years old.
Yeah, it's probably not ideal.
Well, it's a Kevlar timing belt,
and you live in a climate where it's not super harsh on them either.
But I should probably change it. I mean, it's only been 35,000 miles, but it's been 20 years.
You should at least look at it.
I looked at it not that long ago when I did the.
So Kevlar means it's Kevlar reinforced, right?
Yeah, it's a. I don't remember who made it now. It's blue. It's not the Gates blue one. Gates does sell a Kevlar one.
Okay,
but it was some other brand at the time that was doing blue,
The HKS ones are purple, which you can buy those from STM. And apparently it's the same belt. I'd forgotten this. It's the same belt, timing belt and balance shaft belt from 6-bolt 4G63s all the way till Evo 9s.
Even the ones that spin the other direction?
Yep.
Oh, wow. All right. It looks like Greddy makes a Kevlar. HKS makes a Kevlar.
Oh, it might have been a Greddy, and that's why it's blue.
Gates makes a Kevlar.
Yeah.
And OEM is a Kevlar now, too? For the later ones?
I don't know.
It looks like a CT9A, which is an Evo, is a factory Kevlar belt. So, according to Extreme PSI, who is a company who I would definitely trust their things on because they've been doing Mitsubishis for a long time, it says OEM 4G63 CT9A MyVec timing belt Kevlar. So, and right below that, it says related products, timing belt tensioner tool, and timing belt tool cam gear position.
Yeah.
So, which are
the
cheap.
Gallant is like 10 years old, and that's just an OEM one, Mitsubishi.
Yep.
Regular. So
yeah, what's
I
the
should
shelf
probably
life on the
change it, I
Kevlar
guess.
belts?
I have no idea. I think they're significantly stronger, but
Oh, I'm sure they are. I'm going to buy one. I mean, they're not a lot of money in comparison.
no, in the grand scheme of things, no. I'll probably go with the HKS one this time around. It's purple.
Yep. STM sells it.
Yeah.
It's $200.
Well, my engine's worth a little more than $200, so
Yeah, listen, a running engine is. Do they also make a Kevlar balance belt?
yes.
Okay, then there you go. But yeah, it says the same belt. It fits. Yeah. 1G,
Isn't that weird?
2G, GVR4, Evo 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So
Yeah.
that's literally 1990 to 2007.
Yeah.
That's a good
So
run.
that's why I'm like, I don't know about them sitting on the shelf, because like they fit everything, so they should be moving the parts.
Should be.
But I don't know.
Yeah. So the Kevlar balance belt from HKS is $62. So you're $260 into everything.
Yeah.
So, but it's cheap insurance.
It's not that bad to do in the car. I guess I'll do that in the spring.
According to this, you can use Affirm to buy the balance shaft belt for only $11 a month. So,
Okay.
if you're struggling, Andrew, you can make it work.
I'll pay later for it.
Listen, I don't know that I've ever actually done a timing belt before G63 by myself. I know I haven't. The previous 4G63 experience I had was before I did any work on cars when I was a teenager, and I paid somebody to do things. And then I had the Evo, and I never had to replace it because I sold that car at 32,000 miles. And then I had the Gallant, which I spun a bearing on. And obviously we all know the story of that. It was sold before I put it back together. So I've never actually, I've been present when you were doing a timing belt on one, but I've never actually done one. I'm sure it's not tremendously difficult. I've done timing belts on other cars, but
Yeah, I did the one in the Gallant. My dad and I did it on the engine stand before we put the engine in.
which makes it way
That's really
easier.
easy to do it. And then I did a common mistake when you're building a 4G63. There are two shorter oil pan bolts on the oil pump side, timing belt side.
Right, so they don't touch the timing belt.
Yes, by like millimeters.
Yep.
And if you like, basically, there's whatever 20 bolts that hold the oil pan on. They're all, say, I'm just guessing, let's say they're 12 millimeters. The two that go near the timing belt are like 10 millimeters. And if you use them in the wrong spot, you'll open up your timing belt and you'll have a groove on the outside edge of it that
Which
is
is
2
not-
millimeters deep. And I found that like 10,000 miles into the rebuild of that car. So I had to do a timing belt in the car.
And was it tremendously difficult?
It's not too bad. You got to pull the wheel off. on that side because you got to go through the underneath. Then of course you got to pull the engine bracket and engine mount on that side because you got to work around that. And then all the covers come off. And then, it's just a matter of like, you have just enough room to work up against the fender.
Yep. Yeah, it doesn't look super simple, but also I know some pretty big dummies that have done it, so I'm sure I can handle it.
I've done more Subaru timing belts, actually. I would take the 4G63 over a Subaru one.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. And I'm sure there's plenty of videos online I can watch ahead of time too before I go ahead and do it. So.
Oh yeah.
And I have two good friends here in Phoenix who are very experienced with 4G63 timing belts. So that will also help.
The big thing is getting it's especially easier now with the lock tool for the cams.
Yep. So
once you get the timing marks lined up, you might have to actually, if I remember right, because the springiness of the valves and you kind of have to like pull one of the cams just a little bit, either back or forward or whatever, to line up the timing marks. You slide that piece in and then they're locked.
Yep.
And it's good. Like
then
they
you
won't
just
move.
Work on it. Yeah. Well, I have former guest of the show, Josh, is a huge help for me out here because he knows these things like the back of his hand. And our other friend, Keith Roper, who is Mr. Gallant VR4 out here in the Valley, knows these things pretty well. Keith actually he had to do a cylinder head 2 nights before the Prescott Forest Rally on his car. He did it, by himself in an evening. So he works a mile from me, so he'll certainly be able to come by and help if needed. And he's already offered. So, and Josh has also offered to help as much as possible with actual helping labor, parts sourcing, and machine shop sourcing. They have some shops they recommend. So
I'm a traditionalist. I like leaving all the brackets on. I like using the balance shaft belt.
No, I'm going to use a balance shaft
belt. I think it
belt.
helps with the transmission and shifting.
Yeah. I'm going to use the balance shaft belt. The car's not a race car.
There is another way. There's an access hole in the side of the block that you have to take the bolt out of and put like a long pin because you do have to time the balance shaft.
Right. As a hole on the end of it, right?
It's a half moon, yep.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So, yeah, my most recent experience with 4G63s is having all the parts in front of me from the Gallant when we took it apart. So I do recognize the parts and the holes. But
yeah, it's all coming back to me now. It's been a while.
I've been told a few times, actually, by Josh, that one of the easy things on an NA car to make it super fun, because I guess the NA transmission is different. It's geared very different. So... Mm-hmm. It's geared a lot, I guess, lower, so that acceleration is better without a turbo. And he said one of the things that he did before on an NA car was just like a 4-into-2-into-1 header, or 4-into-1 header, and a set of some kind of cam. I don't remember what. And he's like, and the thing was super fun. So
maybe it was the turbo cams.
Maybe it was turbo cams. I'll have to ask him again.
More duration, maybe.
Yeah,
you can put stock turbo cams in it.
Yeah, we'll see what winds up happening. But I don't want to dig too deep into it. And like I said, my only thought was, if it needs a bottom end, how hard would it be to get just a parts car and swap everything over if you have everything to swap over? But if you're saying it wouldn't be that simple, then maybe it's not.
I don't think it would be. I think it just cause more pain. I think keep it as simple as possible, because to get it, just buy a turbo Gallant or an Evo or whatever you want after.
I go back and forth all the time, Andrew. I don't know what I want. I want an Evo so bad, but also I could save a lot of money and have a Gallant that does almost the same thing. So we'll see. One or the other will happen. Whatever it is, I don't know.
All right. Anyway, come join our Discord, because we talk about all this stuff.
Yeah. You already would have known.
We started there's a sub channel for like AI renders
A couple of people are really good with making AI renders of like cars and putting cars in funny situations.
Yeah, and
That's a funny
usually
channel.
there's an AI render based on the episode. So
Yes.
actually, I have one I want to post. I'll probably do that tomorrow. So
Yeah. I don't. Did we post the one of you?
no.
Through the carbon?
I'm
No,
going to post
we
that
didn't.
one. I'll post that tomorrow. I have a whole caption ready for it. I forgot to post it, so I got busy.
Yeah. So that's a good place to hang out. And you can find me on Instagram, Race and Anger, and I'm on Threads. Seems like it's going somewhere. And then Brad, where can they find you?
They can find me at the same places. I'm on Instagram at TSISS350, and I think my Threads name is the same. Also, you can find us
It's all
on
Instagram-based.
Instagram at yep.
Out off topic?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the other one. Scale Autocast.
Scale Autocast?
Excuse me. Oof. Definitely blew that. Scale Autocast.
Get there.
Yeah. We're there.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. Actually, those are on all the things. Those are on Threads as well. So, All right, cool. That being said, as always, keep yours analog and check those timing belts
Ugh.
and aim for the roses.